Hello guys and girls. This lesson is on expanded form and scientific notation. So I'm going to start with scientific notation first. And basically it's a way of writing a really big number, just like an easier way of writing a really big number. So you're going to represent it as a decimal between 1 and 10. And it's going to be that number multiplied by a power of 10. And it's literally just another way to kind of represent a really big number. Okay, and I'm going to break this down and make this a lot simpler for you in a second. But the reason why scientific notation was developed, because it's just an easier way to represent that big number. So that's kind of why you would use it. All right, so let's take for now 70,120. Okay, and just a different way to rewrite this is to represent this number as a decimal multiplied by a power of 10. And I'm going to show you, so this is how we would represent it as a power of 10, as a decimal multiplied by a power of 10. So a way to rewrite this number would be to show it as 7.012 times 10 to the power of 4. Okay, and the reason why, or how I arrived at this answer is 10 to the power of 4, as we know, is actually 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, right? We just did powers. Okay, and 10 times 10 times 10 times 10 is 10,000. So it would be 7.012 times 10,000. Well, the answer to that is 70,120. So basically all we did was we rewrote it so that the answer, so if you did 7.012 times 10 to the power of 4, you're going to arrive at 70,120, which is the number that we started. Okay, so, and you might be thinking, well, how do I know this? And I'm going to show you an easy way. So if you take this number, 70,120, what you're going to do is, there is that imaginary decimal point at the end of every whole number. So whenever we see a whole number, there's always an imaginary decimal point at the very end. Okay, we just don't write it like that. So we have to say, okay, how many decimal places am I going to move this decimal in order for this number to be represented as a decimal between 1 and 10. I'm going to do a different color here. So you take this decimal and you go 1 decimal place, 2 decimal place, 3 decimal place, 4 decimal place. So if we put the decimal here, now this number is 7 decimal something, right? Well, this number, that means that this is between 1 and 10. Which is scientific notation, is rewriting a number so that it's a decimal between 1 and 10. Okay, if we had 70,120 and we move the decimal place over to here and we put it here, we move the decimal place over 3 spots, well, now this number is 70.120. And 70 is not between 1 and 10. So we have to move the decimal place over as many times as we have to in order for it to be represented as a decimal between 1 and 10. Now that we've done that, 1, 2, 3, 4, we've moved it over 4 decimal places, which means that when we're multiplying it by a power of 10, it's 10 to the power of 4 because we moved it over 10 decimal places. Let's do another example. Let's do 9, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. So 975,003,021. Okay, so again, there's this little imaginary decimal point at the end of the number. Where am I going to move it to? So that I'm going to make this a number, a decimal between 1 and 10. Well, we're going to move it over here because if we moved it anywhere else, it would be higher than 10, right? So it's 9 point something, which is a decimal between 1 and 10. So how many places am I going to move it to get from there to there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which means we rewrite this number So 9.75321 times 10 to the power of 5, because we moved it over 5 decimal places. Now, if we had a number like this, just say we had okay, so 732 million. When we rewrite the number, so again, decimal place imaginary is right there. Where are we going to move it so that it's between a decimal between 1 and 10? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Moving it over 5 decimal spots, we're going to rewrite the number 7.32, but we actually, because the number ends in zeros, we don't have to write those zeros down. We just have to go 7.32 times 10 to the power of 5, because we moved it over 5 decimal spots. Okay, so that's just another little tip. If you have several zeros at the end of that number, you don't have to write them when you rewrite that number as that decimal. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to move on to expanded form. And expanded form is kind of pulling apart a number. So the regular way we see numbers is called standard form. Right? Standard, regular, that's the regular way we see numbers, right? This number here, 1,209. If we're doing expanded form, it's a way of writing this number that shows the value of each digit as a power of 10. So, if you look at this place value, that's the thousandth place. So if you were to take that digit there, what would you have to think? What would I have to multiply that digit by to get 1,000? And we have to represent this as a power of 10. So we would multiply 10 by 10 by 10 to get 1,000, right? So another way of rewriting this as a power of 10 is 10 to the power of 3. Plus, and then we look at this digit here. It's a 2, it's in the hundredths place. Well, what would we have to multiply 2 by to get 200 in terms of a power of 10? Well, we'd have to multiply it. We'd have to go 10 times 10, which is 100, times 2, which is 200. So that would be 10 to the power of 2. Now, we don't have to really address the 0. We don't have to include it at all when you see zeros in this number. So we just move on to the next one. And the next digit is 9. It's in the ones place. What would we have to multiply 9 by to get 9? Well, just 1. Okay, I'm going to do another example for you. Okay, let's do another example. Let's do... Okay, let's do 23,521, okay? So this number again is in standard form. We want to put it in expanded form. So we start with the first digit and we think, okay, it's in the 10,000s place. So we start off by just writing the digit, and it's going to be this digit times, and we have to think about it in terms of powers of 10. So it's going to be 10 times what is going to get you 10,000, right? And it's going to be 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, because it's always in power in terms of the power of 10. So 10 times 10 times 10 times 10, that's going to get you 10,000, but you can rewrite that as 10 to the power of 4. So literally another way to represent 20,000 is 2 times 10 to the power of 4. Right? Because it'd be 2 times, if you actually worked out 10 to the power of 4, that would be 10,000. And then 2 times 10,000 is 20,000. And that's the value of this digit right there. Okay, so let's move on to the next number. I'm just going to erase that there. So the next digit that we're working with is the 3. Okay, so when we're moving between the digits, we're always adding. So it would be 2 times 10 to the power of 4 plus 3 times whatever it's going to be. So we start by pulling down the 3. and the 3 is in the thousandths place. So we have to say, okay, in terms of powers of 10, it's going to be 10 times what is going to give us 1,000? Well, it's going to be 10 times 10 times 10. That equals 1,000. Or you can represent that 10 to the power of 3. And if you go 10 to the power of 3, which is 1,000 times 3, it's going to get you 3,000, which is exactly what that is worth, that 3 is representing in this number. Plus, now ideally you want to write this all on one line, but my screen doesn't give me enough room to do that, so that's why I'm kind of bringing it down here. Next digit is 5. 5 is in the hundredths place. That's going to be 10 to the power of what? 10 to the power of what is going to be 100? 10 to the power of 2, that's 10 times 10. That's 100 times 5 is 500, and that's what that represents, that 5 there. Plus 2 is in the tens place, so that's going to be 2 times 10 to the power of 1, because 10 to the power of 1 is 10, times 2 is 20, and that's what that is. And then plus 1. And you can do plus 1, but we can also do 1 times 1. So just like if you remember from the previous screen, the last ones digit was a 9, and I didn't just leave it as a 9. I represented it as a power of 10, and in that power of 10 you can just put the 1, right? So that last ones place is always just times 1, because 1 times 1 is 1. In the previous screen, 9 times 1 was 9. And lastly, a little trick. So let's do 2,000. We'll do another kind of small number. So, actually, you know what? Let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay, so oops, just so you had this number here. $128,963,000, and you had to do that in expanded form, and you're thinking, oh my god, I have no idea. So you bring down the first digit, for example, which is the 1, right? That's the first one that we'd be working with, and you put down 1. It's supposed to be 1 times 10 to the power of, and you're like, I don't know, that's, in that terms of that digit, I don't know how to represent it as a power of 10. Well, kind of a little easy way to do it is, remember that imaginary decimal at the end of a number? We'll just move it over like we did with scientific notation. You say, how many times do I have to move this digit over so that it's kind of like you're thinking about it as just like scientific notation, where you're trying to get it as a decimal between 1 and 9. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you've moved that decimal place over 5 spots. So now this 1 is going to be 10 to the power of 5. 1 times 10 to the power of 5. And then you move over to the next one, plus, and then you bring down the next one, 2 times, and you start at the 3 again, and you go 1, 2, 3, 4. I moved the decimal over 2 times to get it on that other side of the 2. It's basically just moving over the decimal to the right side of the number that you're dealing with, okay? So that's kind of like an easy way to do it. I just wanted to show you the thinking behind it. How did you get that power of 10 before I moved into like an easier way to do it? So I'll just continue. So 8, it'd be 8 times 10 to the power of 3, plus then 9 times 10 to the power of 2, plus 6 times 10 to the power of, well, you can put 10 to the power of 1. It's also 10 to the, just 10. And then plus 3 times 1. And that's expanded form for this huge number here. Okay, so the question that I want you to do is these 3 numbers here, I want you to put them in expanded form. And then this number and that number, I want you to put in scientific notation. Okay, so again, it's a lot to learn, and it seems a little tricky, but watch the video a few times if you need to in order for you to get it. And yeah, just do those particular questions for your homework tonight.